Ready? All right, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 1:30. We've got a quorum. Before we get to the next item, you may notice that there are only 3 of us. We're missing 2 folks today. So that means on any vote to approve or deny, you're going to have to get 3 out of 3. If anybody would like to bump it to the next docket, when the other 2 people are here and you get a full board, it's fine with me. We've got a spot to request a continuance, but you need to understand you got to get 3 out of 3 today. So, next item, receive the minutes.
Make a motion that we accept the minutes.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Now, request for continuance or withdrawal. I don't have any on the agenda. Anybody in the public want to ask for a continuance? All right. I don't have a consent docket, so Cindy, if you go ahead and call the first case, please.
We have item number 1, case number 15551, is a special exception for Oklahoma Shakespeare in the Park to allow an outdoor venue for theater and other gathering events in the NC district located at 2920 Paseo.
Is the applicant here?
Good afternoon. I'm Larry Herzl with HSE Architects. We were the original architects on the theater remodel, and we designed this, what we're calling the Shakespeare Gardens back behind, which is on the Board of Adjustment today to extend the special exception that we got 3 years ago to make that exception permanent. So with that in mind, a couple of things. Since 2021, when that special exception was granted for 3 years, the theater's had 81 performances with 8,000 patrons, and to our knowledge, no complaints from any of the neighbors, which was originally going to be the concern of the Board of Adjustment when that was granted as a temporary. So I was just going to try to keep this as brief as possible. Yeah, the theater is located at 29th and Paseo, and the city has been making a lot of improvements on the streets down there and actually increased the amount of parking, which was going to be one of the concerns originally, but I think that has proven to be a moot point at this juncture, and no complaints from the neighbors. We do have endorsements from many of the businesses in that area saying what a good neighbor Shakespeare in the Park has been, and hopefully that they will continue to do their productions into the future. They've been in business for 40 years. You may have known they started in Edmond 40 years ago, and then about 5 or 6 years ago changed down to the Paseo area, and has been a very good neighbor and welcome addition to the performing arts and visual arts in the neighborhood. So that is our question today. Can we extend this special exception for a permanent basis rather than just a term limit?
Questions, comments from the board? I don't have anybody signed up to speak on this one. Does anybody want to address the board on this application? Okay, I think we're ready for a motion then.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve case number 15551 on the basis that it meets the criteria for a special exception for permanent use.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. You're approved.
Thank you, right.
Please do.
And applause after every performance.
No fight.
Let's put that at citizens to be heard. Okay.
Item number two, case number 15530 is a request of Metro Tech Vocational Technical Center for a variance to sign and landscaping regulations located at 4901 South Bryant Avenue.
Good afternoon. My name is Sebastian Clements. I'm with Interface Architectural Signage on behalf of Metro Technology Centers. Metro Tech identified a critical need for improved signage a number of years ago. Got funds through the MAP bond program. I'm also here with several representatives of Metro Tech, Superintendent Collins, Jessica Martinez-Brooks, and Phil Carlton in the back. But using the bond funds, they engaged Interface as a national signage and wayfinding company. I'm local here, but we do campus environments all over the country. Come in, do both the assessment, recommendations, as well as make the signs. This is a very large, complex campus with multiple buildings at South Bryant. A lot of it is new construction as well, and there is little to no signage at the moment. With the current residential sign requirements and landscaping requirements, it's not really possible to properly identify the entrances, the new layouts. A lot of it has changed at South Bryant. And so we have put together a plan, proposed signs, the majority of which are internal to campus or building identification. But a very conscious effort's been placed to minimize visual clutter, only do what's required and necessary. You see the location plans, you've seen the design, but the variance that we are requesting is for both the signage kind of quantity, which is currently in residential R1 is a maximum of one per street, as well as a sign size, which I think is 4 square feet, very, very small. And so, as well as the landscaping, because of all of the new construction, they've done a very good job with the existing landscaping. And so our request and application was for an exception to or requesting a variance for the signage quantity, size, and landscaping requirements. If you have any questions.
Anything from the board?
The only question I have on the case itself is the landscaping and trying to get a variance to not have any landscaping. I think
Right.
maybe the ground-mounted monument signs in the front could use landscaping just to soften it. And
So
I
I
understand
did,
kind of the raised signs and no need to have landscaping around those, but your
Yes, sir.
thoughts on the
okay. I guess the only, the reason the request was put in for the landscaping was the bond funds were actually specifically, set aside for signage itself and not the landscaping. They've actually implemented a lot of new landscaping, which is all around the individual sign locations. And so our professional opinion was that adding, whether it's shrubs or additional landscaping, could actually detract from, the signage the way it's laid out. So, but the campus is very well landscaped in addition to having very large green spaces around as well.
Yeah, and I
Yes,
saw that, and I know, and when you build the new buildings, there's obviously a landscaping plan that you have to submit and follow, and just
Yes, sir.
the reason for that on the signs is the same, just to soften the look.
Yes, sir.
Anything else from the board? Nobody signed up to speak on this one. Does anybody want to address the board on this application? guess we're ready for a motion.
I just have a quick question. Are you guys opposed to voluntarily adding some landscaping as you see fit? If you put those in there, some shrubs that you guys feel would be appropriate that wouldn't detract from the signage?
Not opposed at all. Yeah.
Mr. Voorhees. Aaron Collins, Superintendent, CEO at Metro Technology Center. It's good to see everybody. Thank you so much for listening. There is landscape there, and you're absolutely correct on. When we did the new building and that, we put in the landscape. We can look at and put landscape as appropriate around these signs once they're in. We have absolutely no problem with that. It is a separate fund, but we can easily do that. It would be separate from this discussion, but we can easily be able to adapt and put the landscaping additional if needed. But there is landscaping where these signs will go.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I don't want to put any requirements on you. I mean, I've been to the campuses.
Yeah.
The work you guys are doing is phenomenal.
Yeah, I
And
appreciate you.
I think we can all appreciate good signage that tells us where to go if you've ever been on any type of campus.
Yes.
I just think that I trust you guys that if you see that, hey, we could use some additional landscaping
We
here
will.
and see opportunities to add some, that's good enough for me.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
With that, I would like to make a motion to approve case number 15530 on the basis that it meets the statutory requirements for a variance.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second, cast your votes.
It
I
showed,
already voted. It didn't show
it,
up.
it showed it passed, but then it went away.
Oh, did, I missed it, sorry. We can do it again. Sorry. There you go, you're approved.
Thank you.
Item number 3, case number 15532 is a request of Metro Tech Vocational Technical Center for a variance to sign and landscaping regulations located at the 1900 Spring Lake Drive.
Hello again. Similar to South Bryant, Spring Lake is the larger of the two campuses. It's much more involved, I think double the amount of buildings. And so, in the case of trying to keep things brief, the majority of the reason, similar to South Bryant, but the majority of sign locations are actually replacing and upgrading existing signs at South Bryant, as well as interior to campus. So you're going to see a number of sign locations, but it's predominantly interior wayfinding to campus, whether it's pedestrian and or the side streets to navigate people to and from the buildings. But again, a conscious effort was placed to minimize the number of new sign locations, sign clutter, and putting our best foot forward, trying to do what's in the best interest of both the community, students, visitors, and anyone who comes to the campus. So.
Any questions, comments on this one? And again, nobody signed up to speak on this. Does anybody want to address the board? All right, ready for a motion then?
I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 15532 on the basis that it meets the statutory requirements for a variance.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. You're approved.
Thank you all.
We have item number 4, case number 15533, request of Madrona Northwest Investment Company for a variance to sign regulations that prohibit signage on or over the street right-of-way in the O2 Office District located at 4334 Northwest Expressway, number 214.
Good afternoon, my name is Rhonda Michoud. I'm with Madrona Investment Company. We're the owners of the Northwest Office Center. I'm here today to ask for a variance to place a monument sign on, excuse me, and I'm new at this, so bear with me, in front of the building. Pre-COVID, we were about 99% occupied. Today, we're 50%. And when we've interviewed existing and potential tenants, they've told us their number one problem with the building is that it's not easily identified. We have a monument sign now, but it's up against the building on the south side of the fire lane, and you can't see it until you're right up on it. So when we started designing the sign and we determined what we needed from a monument standpoint, we were unaware that there was a easement there, so that was new to us. So we repositioned it and asking you to consider allowing us to put it in this place. It's about 90 feet off of the Northwest Expressway Road. I don't know if that's noticeable there, but we think it's a good compromise for us.
Okay, anything from the board?
I don't have a problem with it. You have a revocable permit already on it, so knowing that approval, if something was to happen, the city could revoke it and have to move it
Understood.
anyway.
Understood.
The only person signed up to speak is Rhonda.
Yay.
Anything else from the board? Okay, I think we're ready for a motion then.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 15533 on the basis that it meets the statutory requirements for a variance.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second, cast your votes. You're approved.
Item number 5, case number 15526 is a renewal application for special exception of Phil and Terry Bouchon to allow home sharing located at 9812 Hefner Village Place.
I am Phil Bouchon. I'm representing my wife and I. We're the owners of this property. I was here a year ago for our first exemption request, and at this time, I'd like to request another exemption, and if possible, for a period longer than 1 year. According to the staff report, we've had no issues, had very good occupancy and very good occupants at the same time, and good neighbor relations, and we'd like to continue with this.
Comments, questions?
Is there anybody here on this one?
No, nobody signed up on this one.
I do remember when we first brought this case a year ago, and we had quite a few protests on it, so you obviously have run a good business. So, thanks for that. Just looking at the application, there's 3 rooms being offered, 3 bedrooms. Is it a 3-bedroom?
Correct.
And you're asking for 8 guests on a 3-bedroom? How do you get to 8 with
There's
3 bedrooms?
bunk beds. These are very large bedrooms, and one bedroom has full-size bunk beds in it, and then the master has a king size, and the other bedroom has a queen. We do have a large sofa. It was our original idea that we would have large families that could gather, but that's not very practical for the parking and the proximity of all the units. So my wife had a vision that's really not practical for that particular site, so we downsized all that, and that's worked out just fine. We've changed our pricing, and that's worked all right for us.
Okay, and another question, how many cars can you park in the drive to be off-street?
Two in the garage and two in the
car,
drive.
Okay.
And these are townhouses. There are some guest slots right across the street from ours. I think there's 5 in that space, but the whole neighborhood really is not conducive to any street parking.
Okay.
And that's in the HOA.
Okay, so if you would, I'd like to make a couple adjustments to the application.
Okay.
And put a limit of 4 cars and no on-street parking.
That is in our bylaws.
Yeah, it's just, so,
Oh, on yours?
just in the application.
Okay.
Yeah, I see that, and I would be okay with 3 years. It's on the first renewal, a 3-year
That-
exemption.
That would be great.
I'm good with 8.
Okay.
Anybody want to address the board on this application? Nobody signed up. Okay, I guess we're ready for a motion then.
I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 15526 for a special exception, subject to the self-imposed rules with the change that the maximum number of vehicles to be 4 for a period of 3 years.
Okay, motion and a second. Cast your votes. You're approved.
Thank you very much.
Item number 6, case number 15514 is an application of Carissa Frank to allow home sharing located at 4401 St. Gregory Drive. And this was continued from a previous meeting. There was protest, and you asked them to come back showing that they had property management.
Hi, I'm McKenna Bento. I was here a month ago representing Carissa Frank. I do have another packet for you guys to look at, just regarding that we did get a property manager, and there are 2 property managers. So Evolve is the first and foremost property manager, and then 2, to have someone there physically is going to be the neighbors across the street, Art and Summer Vinson, and so they will be there physically to monitor, vehicles. If anybody parks on the street, they can say, hey, to enforce the rules of the community, and or if there's anything that people are bending the rules, they can go and say, hey, these are the rules of the community, please respect them, so on and so forth. So if you, can I give this to you? There's a letter from Art and Summer in there, just letting y'all know that they are going to be helping, and what shows online on Evolve when you book, it shows all the rules, and that Evolve is the property manager, and it lists online that they are. So.
This is in the packet.
Oh, okay. It's in the packet. Okay. Okay. Anything from the board?
I am curious as to whether Art and his wife were they originally protesters?
No,
Okay.
no.
I was just curious about that. I do want to commend you for taking the time to go get a property manager, and I think that the way that you guys did it is innovative, having a property manager, but also including the neighbors with that. I think that speaks volumes. I'm really excited to see how it plays out with having somebody that's there, that's in close proximity to the property. And if you haven't already, I would just advise that you make sure to inform all the other neighbors of their role, so that they know, hey, one of our very own neighbors right here has some capacity to interact with anything that may be going on that's undesirable.
Is there anybody who wants to address the board on this application? I don't have anybody signed up. Okay, I guess we're ready for a motion then.
Before we do that, just a couple of things on the application itself. Just want to make sure that there's 4 bedrooms, 8 guests, quiet hours from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. So going to be a 1-year exemption. Maximum of 4 cars and no on-street parking.
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 15514 on the basis that it meets the statutory requirements for a special exception, subject to the self-imposed rules for a period of 1 year with a maximum of 4 vehicles.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. You're approved.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Item number 7, case number 15520 is a renewal application of Blake Oman to allow home sharing in the HLC district located at 612 Northwest 25th Street.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Blake Owen, actually at 615 Northwest 25th, just across the street from the subject property here. The next agenda item is also across the street as well at 608 Northwest 25th. 612 Northwest 25th, since receiving a special exception last year, has had the joy and pleasure of hosting more than 85 stays, more than 350 nights have been stayed there, and every single rating across the board from our guests has been nothing but 5 stars, which is something we're really, really proud of. Also, as a representative on the Leadership Council for the Paseo Neighborhood Association, I'm well connected with all the neighbors in the area, in addition to the adjacent properties. And, with me being across the street, it keeps it pretty easy to keep eyes on everything as well. I think our rules are pretty clearly stated there. We have a maximum of 3 cars in each one of those driveways, no on-street parking whatsoever. And it's not allowed on that section of the street anyway. For 612, this is a renewal application. For 608, this would be a new special exception. The Historical Preservation Commission in last week's prior meeting recommended to approve it, and I believe there was some supporting documentation from neighbors submitted as part of that one as well. But certainly happy to address any questions or concerns.
Just one from me, and that is on the quiet hours. Could we go from 9 p.m. to 8 a.m.?
I think
right now it just says quiet hours, quiet time after 10 p.m.
Maybe it's a typo there, but we usually enforce that from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. is when they're able to act freely, and then the quiet hours are after 10 p.m.
Yeah, everything else is good. 3 years.
Yeah, so the application says you're seeking the special exception for a period of 5 years. We typically, if there's been good history, which it sounds like you have, would be willing to go up to 3 years if you're okay with that.
That'd be amenable for sure. It's really just a matter of continuing to prove that out for you all and making sure everybody's comfortable. Yeah.
Nobody signed up to speak on this one. Does anybody want to address the board? Okay, guess we're ready for a motion then.
I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 15520 on the basis that it meets the statutory requirements for a special exception, subject to the self-imposed rules, with quiet hours to be from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. For a period of 3 years.
Second.
Motion and a second. Cast your votes. You're approved.
Item number 8, case number 15527 is an application for special exception of Blake Owen to have home sharing located in the NC and HL district, located at 608 Northwest 25th Street.
Yeah, so just for some added context, this property is actually directly next door and had been historically operating as a short-term rental with the prior owner under the radar, for lack of better words. And so this is my opportunity to bring that to a more formal place and make sure we have the proper licenses and everything in order.
Anything from the board?
Are you okay with the same quiet hours, 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. here?
Yep, no problem.
And then you can fit, it looks like the driveway is pretty long. You can fit 3 vehicles there without any on-street parking.
Say that one more time, sorry.
You can fit 3 vehicles in
Yeah,
the driveway?
there's a 1-car garage back there that we don't allow the guests to park in. So it's the exact same length as the driveway next door as well. We allow for 3, but very strict on not blocking the sidewalk in any way. And then no street parking here as well.
Okay, and because this is an initial application, we'd likely be approving just a 1-year exception for right now.
Understood. Yep.
Anything else from the board? Does anybody want to address this application? Nobody signed up. Okay, I think we're ready for a motion then.
I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 15527 on the basis that it meets the statutory requirements for a special exception for a period of 1 year with a maximum of 3 vehicles with quiet hours from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m.
Second.
Motion and a second. Go ahead and cast your votes.
Thank you all.
Approved.
Item number 9, case number 15528 is an application for special exception of Stephen and Andrea Skaggs to allow home sharing located at 9406 Buttonwood Avenue.
Hi there. This is Audra Skaggs representing both Stephen and Audra Skaggs. And this was our home of 30 years prior to becoming a short-term rental. I have the utmost respect for all of my neighbors, as many of them have been there for 30 years. So they're all aware of the short-term rental, and they haven't had any issues with it. We've been super blessed with just having families come in for either short weekend or longer stays for softball tournaments and things of that nature. No one has had any issues. We do have a 2-car garage, but we advertise and allow for 1 car in the garage, 2 in the driveway, and then 1 in the street, which is just right in front of the home. And we do also talk about in our house rules that this home is amongst our neighbors of 30 years and, you know, to please be respectful of them, and so far, so good. So. In our quiet hours, I was just refreshing my memory here, they are currently posted at 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., but we can adjust that if you deem that to be needed.
Anything from the board? I don't have anybody signed up on this one.
It's a 3-bedroom property.
Correct?
How many baths are in it?
2 full baths.
2 full baths, and you're asking for 7 with 3
That's
baths.
correct. We have a king and a queen, and then in what we call the kids' room, we have a full-size bottom bunk and then a single twin top bunk in there.
I know you said on the on the parking, you allowed for 1 space in the street, and so you have 3 cars that.
We actually say 4 because we do allow them access to the garage, but there's a shelter in the garage on the left-hand side. So we allow 1 in the garage, 2 in the driveway. The driveway will actually accommodate 4, but we just said, you know, we would allow 1 in the garage, 2 in the driveway, and then 1 in the street right in front of the home, which is really customary for that area. There's not an HOA, and like I said, we lived there for 30 years, and folks are, you know, often parking in front of their homes.
One of the complaints that we get a lot is about street parking. Would you be okay with limiting it to a maximum of 3 cars with no on-street parking?
Sure.
Okay. Anybody want to address the board on this application? Nobody signed up, so.
And 1 year's okay?
I would love to ask for the longest amount. I don't know
So,
what,
because it's the initial one,
you do 1.
we do 1.
And may I ask a question? I just had a thought. So since the driveway will accommodate 4, would we be able to offer more than just 3 parking spaces, but just say no parking in the street?
Yeah, I think so.
Whatever you think would be reasonable there.
I think 4 cars can fit in there. Yeah, as long as it's no on-street parking, I'm
No
fine
street
with 4
parking.
cars with no
Okay.
on-street.
Okay.
There's nothing else. I think we're ready for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 15528 on the basis that it meets the statutory requirements for a special exception for a period of 1 year, subject to the self-imposed rules, with the maximum of 4 cars and no on-street parking.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Cast your votes. You're approved.
Item number 10, case number 15529 is an application for special exception of home sharing on behalf of Curran Fudge and CMF LLC located at 4800 Thompson Avenue.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Saban with the Center for Economic Development Law, 301 North Harvey, Suite 200. I'm here representing the applicant CNF LLC and its principal, Curran Fudge, who's here along with his property manager, Eric Viveros. We're requesting a one-year special exception for the property at 4800 North Thompson. This is in Thompson's Woodland Addition, kind of just southwest of the intersection of Kelly and 50th. The property has a 2,150 square foot single-family house on a half-acre lot. There's an attached two-car garage and a recently repaved driveway that provide ample off-street parking opportunities for 5 vehicles. The home itself has 3 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, and it's anticipated it will be furnished with a full-size pull-out sleeper sofa in the living room. The applicant's proposed rules have for a maximum of 8 guests, which is 2 per bedroom, and then 2 on the sleeper sofa, a minimum 2-night stay to prevent one-night stays, quiet hours between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., parking limited to the garage and driveway, no street parking allowed, and then a requirement that the surrounding homes and neighborhood be respected. And we're requesting a one-year special exception because it's our first application for this property. I, the applicant, or his property manager can address any questions you all might have.
How many bathrooms?
3.
You've got 3 bedrooms and you want 8 occupants. And you said your plan is to add a sleeper sofa, so the property doesn't have one currently?
The property is currently not furnished because we don't know if you guys will accept this or not, and if not, the applicant would propose on leasing it or selling the property. So we propose to have a minimum full or queen-size beds in each of the bedrooms and then a full-size sleeper sofa.
And with this being an initial application, you understand we typically grant a one-year exception.
Right, that's all we've requested.
I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 15529 on the basis that it meets the statutory requirements for a special exception for a period of 1 year, subject to the self-imposed rules.
Second.
Okay, nobody signed up to speak on this one, so motion and a second. Cast your votes. You're approved.
Thank you all.
Item number 11, case number 15534 is an application for special exception of Julie K. Lamb to allow home sharing located at 600 Southwest 111th Street.
Hello, my name is Julie Lamb, and I live on 3501 Crystal Spring Drive in Norman. I am requesting for a special exception for home sharing at 600 Southwest 111th Street. This home has 4 bedrooms, 3.5 bath, 3-car garage, and it is 3,200 square feet. Whenever we will advertise on Airbnb, we are planning to have quiet hours from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. The maximum number of guests is to be 8. The maximum number of cars to be 6, 2 in the garage, 3 in the driveway, and we actually have a circle drive that is able to fit 2 to 3 vehicles, and we are not allowing street parking. You have to be a minimum of 25 years old to rent. We require a 2-night minimum stay to deter any parties to go on at the home. We do not allow any parties or any type of commercial activities. We do not allow pets, motorhome camping, motorhome, camper, trailer, or boat parking, and we do not allow last-minute booking. We will try our very best to enforce all the rules and activities. We do have 2 cameras on the premise. One is a Ring doorbell, and the other one is because the front of the house is just the entrance, and then the driveway is on the side. So we have Ring doorbells on each side to monitor people coming in and going. And that camera on the side also monitors coming and going into the back gate, which is where the pool is. And I know that some of the neighbors have concerns because the house has a pool. I would also like to take this time to, I know that a lot of the neighbors have concern, but this will be our second Airbnb that we are doing. The one that we are currently doing right now is in Moore. We are a super host. We take pride in everything and anything that we do. We have a 4.97 stars out of 119 reviews. We have never had any neighbors complained, any code violation, and the police have never been called out to the premise either. And this is a 3-year time span that we have been doing. The home that we currently are doing right now, it's actually half a mile from Broadmoor Elementary, where the neighborhood has a lot of growing families with a lot of young, small children. And we've never had any complaints from the neighbors of any of our guests. We are not an out-of-state investor. My husband and I are the one that takes care of the property. So any issues that arise, we are actually there. We survey the property before and after each guest that comes and goes. Before I go directly into, because I read some of the letters that the neighbors have concerns about, we acquired the property about a year and a half ago, and I just kind of wanted to remind them of how we have been neighbors to them for the last year and a half. We have been very respectful of trash whenever we're doing the facelift to the property, taking care of the lawn and everything like that. So we just want to be good neighbors to the neighbors in the neighborhood. I just hope that everything that I have mentioned is a clear indication that we do care about the neighborhood, and as if we were living there. Our goal is to keep the neighborhood safe, appealing, and not lose their property value as well.
Questions, comments from the board? Nobody signed up. Is there anybody here who wants to speak on this application? All right, go ahead. Come on up.
I didn't know what to do with this piece of paper. I'm sorry.
Okay, now we got somebody signed up.
My name is Carlos Bruce. I live at 601 Southwest 111th Street, which is directly across from the property that we're talking about. I'm going to assume that you have the email that I have sent?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I will go to the brief. I'm really out of my element here. My name is Carlos Bruce. I live at 601 Southwest 111th Street in Oklahoma City. I'm 89 years old. I'm here speaking for myself and neighbors that could not be here. You have heard the objections in the email. I won't go there with that anymore. You've heard them. I will not repeat all the objections. When I became aware that this property is being renovated to an Airbnb, and by the way, I would like to compliment them on they did extensive renovations, and they kept the property clean and kept up all the time for this year that they were, so I appreciated that. There was no trash, there was nothing, so that's a plus on their side. I thought, who would want to stay in such a place? It's not near a hospital, it's not near any kind of medical facility, it's not near a sports venue, it's not near a shopping center, and it's not near any good restaurants. So who would want to use a place like that. Well, I come to the conclusion only party people would want to use that kind of facility. I'd like to go on, if I may, and introduce you to some people who are not here, but I'm representing. Yvonne Day lives directly next door to the property. She's 84 years old. She spent the last 14 years taking care of her husband in their home instead of sending him to a nursing home. He recently passed away. Now she may have to contend with a party house next door. She don't deserve that. She don't need that. I'd like to also introduce you to Joanne Lane, 89. Now you might see why I gave my age in the beginning, because we are kind of old in that neighborhood. She lost her husband 10 years ago. She backs up to the lake here. Her property is directly across the street and backs up to the lake. She has maintained her home on her own all these years. Well, her health is starting to fail somewhat now. And with the addition of this kind of transit neighbors would create even a bigger problem that she has now. I could introduce you to several more. There are 2 more widows and 1 widower in my neighborhood. One of them next door, one of them across the street, and the other one just on the other side of me. We are not asking that you, we're asking that you allow us to continue to live our lives in a setting that we have worked for all of our lives. We don't need any extra problems. We have plenty of our own. You know, we care a great deal about our neighborhood, and we care a great deal about our city. And I would like to ask one question. How much does the city care about us? Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Lamb? Do you want to respond?
I feel that your concern is also our concern as well, too. The goal that we have is to provide a beautiful, safe home for people like myself who go on vacations every year, and we look for a nice place to stay. And we actually tend to look for a home with a pool for our kids to keep them busy and to enjoy the property. So my goal is to target families, and what we have noticed with our other property is that it's not party people that come, it's people we've had people who've been here for funerals, weddings, and the one that I actually had to come and stay at this home to make sure all the drainage and everything had worked. She is a former guest of ours at the other location, and she mainly came and stayed at our property because her daughter had cancer. And so she was here to take care of her daughter. That motivates us to provide a nice, safe home for families who are in town. And I know that Mr. Johnson's letter, who is not here, I assume, in his letter, he did mention about the lake that's behind his house. And I honestly did not know that the neighborhood even had that for us to even use, nor do I really care to even advertise that on our platform because I feel that that's private property. And unfortunately, I am one of those where I am like a helicopter mom. So with the property, I am that way as well too. If I have no control over it or to see it, I don't want to list anything that could affect my rating and my status as a superhost as well too. And that's all I have.
Okay. Anything else from the board? Did you want to speak?
Yes, sir.
Come on, Matt.
One clarification word. Thank you to the board for brief recognition here today. My name is Ryan Johnson. I'm at 1200 South Chartel, the property Ms. Lamb just mentioned. And I first want to take a moment to apologize to Julie because I have not made your acquaintance yet. I've seen a lot of coming and going across the way. Never really knew who was whom, and so this is not the appropriate forum for Oklahomans to be meeting as neighbors, and so I do apologize that. I hope you accept my apology. We are all people. This is also my grandfather, who we moved from Texas to be next door to. Undertook a lengthy renovation, as did you, for the better part of the year during COVID supply chain shortage, and we're all happily there with my young family, expecting our third young child now. I think the main thing I want to communicate is that all of these people are great neighbors. They welcome everyone, and they would like to treat you in the same way that. Yeah. We would like to treat Ms. Lamb in the same way that if she were a resident neighbor, we want to look out for the property. We want to be able to reach out directly and let you know if there's anything suspicious going on, if there's been weather damage on times where they're not at the property or not being rented out. So my first ask is, would we be able to contact you directly, let you know things that you would want to know, just as we would inform our other neighbors, irrespective of any VRBO or Airbnb. So that would be my first ask. Point number two, I think you address, is a 2-night minimum. So that was going to be my second question. Just make sure that we don't have the one-night pool party situation. I think the piece on parking was brought up as well. No street parking, ample parking in the circle driveway. And then finally, to address the main concern, because it struck me when I was penning this letter of opposition that we as humans tend to allow our minds to drift to the outer space of the worst thing that could happen. And that's kind of where the bounds of improbability meet probability. So we need to reel it back into the mainstream and think, what is probably going to happen? What's probably going to happen is we are going to have curious people, whether they be adults or children, see this big, beautiful lake or reservoir technically, and want to get a closer look. And we actually had people doing that when they were looking at the property that Ms. Lamb purchased. So it does happen. It is a thing. The neighbors have kind of agreed to keep this open for the benefit of all the neighbors that don't adjoin the lake directly. And I just don't want to be in a position to have to mitigate my liability with fencing, a bigger insurance policy, so on and so forth. This is foreseeable that people are going to be attracted to the lake. So what I would want to suggest is some type of language and working together, some type of signage within the rental. Many of these you've seen kind of have come with a user manual that tell you how to use the remote control and the TV, where the pool light switch is, things of that nature. If we could just kind of emphasize and underscore the importance that there is no easement to the lake, because it does appear that there is one, because there's no fencing. There is a wide swath of land between our and Mrs. Lane's property. Just indicate that this is private property. There is no easement. This would be a trespass, and risk something with teeth like being evicted without refund of the premise, should there be anything like that go on. So with that, I'll yield, and thank you for your time.
Mr. Johnson, just a question for you. So the reservoir itself is not open to the neighbors?
No, this is private property.
Surrounded and
yes,
so
and
you have to back up.
actually, I think when this property was built in '87, the land was not fully eroded towards the house that it is now, such that my property line actually extends about 40 foot out into the water. If you see that little embankment, that hook that comes out, that is where the edge of our property used to start out, being in 1987. So we technically own some of the reservoir now.
The water.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's the case with all these properties that line the lake there.
Yep. And just for you to know, I mean, I'm going to ask the applicant to make sure that she gives you her contact information.
Yeah.
And then the other request would be no
Absolutely.
lake access.
Okay? Thank you.
Anything else from the board? Nobody signed up to speak? I think we're ready for a motion.
Just a couple other things on the application, I just want to go over it. And I want to maybe limit some of the application too, if you're so inclined, but you have a maximum of 8 guests, and so you have 8 rooms, and so I'm okay with that. I'd like to limit the cars to 5. With 8 guests, I think 5-car maximum would be sufficient. Again, there's a pool. I just don't want the opportunity for one of your guests to have a bunch of people, other people who aren't going to stay the night but still come over. And so that, and it'd be a 1-year exemption since it's the very first time.
And then for the sake of, the safety of Mr. Johnson's family as well too, I would make sure that we will put in our rules that that is private property.
You have quiet hours already, so that I'm good with everything else.
Anything else? Okay, ready for a motion, I think.
I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 15534 on the basis that it meets the statutory requirements for a special exception for a period of 1 year, subject to the self-imposed rules with a maximum of 5 vehicles.
Second.
Motion and a second. Cast your votes. Okay, you're approved.
Item number 12, case number 15541 is an appeal by John Orneman III, CEO of Locke Supply Company, of the decision of an administrative official regarding the assessment of streets development fees on building permit BLDC 2023-5982 at 8811 South Bryant Avenue.
Afternoon. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and thank you for having me this afternoon. My name is Maurice Woods. I'm an attorney here at McAtee and Woods, Oklahoma City, our office up in Midtown. I represent today Locke Supply Company. Locke Supply is represented by its chairman and CEO, I should say, Mr. John Orman, sitting in the back with us here today. And I also have Mr. Caleb Morgan here with me today from Johnson and Associates Engineers, who's worked up some of the studies that form the basis for our appeal. I know that in the agenda, there's a paragraph that says try to keep remarks to 5 minutes. I also know that, from my understanding from the city councilor's office, this is the first time an appeal has ever been taken from the Oklahoma City municipal development fee. And we took the first level appeal to Mr. Rick Wickenkamp, the services director. And then here we are before the Board of Adjustment. So I think there's been a little bit of a learning process, and I'm not sure how familiar the board is with all of the ordinance and the procedures at this point. So if I could have just a little latitude to maybe go through some of that, I'd be glad to explain sort of what brings us here today and what the issue is. I know that, our appeal takes up probably 2/3 or over a third, maybe half of the packet that I received from city staff about the issues today, and there's a lot packed in there. But basically, Locke Supply Company has been assessed a traffic development fee or development fee, which is really a traffic impact fee of about, precisely $725,158.56 as part of its building permit. A little bit about the company. Locke Supply Company, as you may be aware, supplies plumbing, electrical, heating, ventilation, air conditioning components to many of the contractors, residential and commercial, throughout the state of Oklahoma. They have a large distribution warehouse they operate out of currently at 82nd, Southeast 82nd and I-35. And then they have various retail wholesale type of shops in Oklahoma City, as well as a lot of our surrounding communities. They employ over 1,100 people in the state of Oklahoma, and last count, somewhere between $3.5 and $4 million a year is contributed in Oklahoma City sales tax by their efforts. There has been a growth in their business, growth in the population of Oklahoma, to the point that they are now needing to upsize the scope of their distribution facilities. And as a result of that, they purchased 95 acres at the northwest corner of southeast Bryant, 89th and Bryant, just south of I-240. That is part of something called the OK 577 LLC, which is a partnership of private developers, the Oklahoma Industrial Authority, and the Alliance for the Economic Development. And there's several lots to be developed in there, but of the 95 acres that Locke purchased, they are intending, and in fact are underway in construction of a warehouse facility constituting 1.5 million square feet. Locke's need for this warehouse and their use of this warehouse is going to be different than most warehouses of this size and type that might fall into an industrial category. They are intending to incorporate and use some of the most modern distribution technology, computer technology, tracking, and methods of organizing the warehouse, and do so in such a manner that they will be able to operate a larger warehouse with the same number of employees and basically the same number of truck trips per day, semi-trucks in and out, as they are now at Southeast 82nd and I-35. So what we are here today is to ask for a significant reduction of the assessed development impact fee. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and tell you the ask is going to be to reduce that fee by about 86.5%. And if you'll indulge me, I'll tell you why. Going back through a little bit of history of what this traffic impact fee comes from, it originates out of a state statute. It's called the Enabling Act. It is found in Public Finance, Title 62, Section 895. Without it, the Oklahoma City Ordinance would not even be capable of existing. There are a few significant portions of it. I don't certainly want to read the entirety of it, but the whole purpose of the Enabling Act is to allow municipalities to create ordinances to mitigate against what additional traffic impacts may occur as a result of a new development or a new commercial or a new industrial building being built. In other words, if there's going to be an increase in the traffic on the roadways, then it's an ability for a municipality to offset some of that additional cost of having to increase traffic signals, turn lanes, put in more traffic lanes, et cetera, to accommodate whatever that traffic is. But the development fee is defined in the statute as the payment of any money as a condition of approval of any building permit to pay for public infrastructure systems that need to be increased that are attributable to the new development or to expand or modify new development. It goes on to say those development fees shall not exceed a clear, ascertainable, and reasonably determined proportionate share of the cost of capital improvement to the public infrastructure system attributable to the expansion or increase in the capacity generated by the new development, to finish the paraphrase. So against that backdrop, the City of Oklahoma City enacted Ordinance 25,374 on April the 27th of 2016. It's codified in Chapter 50, Section 14 of the Municipal Code. And it somewhat tracks, of course, what the state enabling statute says. But some of the important language in it, again, are the definitions of the development fee, which means the payment of the money imposed as a condition of approval to the extent the fee is to pay for public infrastructure systems and changes that are attributable to new development or the expanded development. So very similar to the state statute. It goes on to say that new developments and expanded or modified developments shall be charged a development fee for capital improvement costs for increases in expansion to the capacity of public infrastructure attributable to that development. And development fees may not be used to fund repairs, maintenance, restoration, or fixes to existing infrastructure. So it's a very nuanced that this money that's being collected must go to expansion of infrastructure, not to repair potholes in the roads, not to upkeep what's already on the books or already been constructed out here in the city. It's only for new expansion. The way that the city ordinance works is fairly simple. The Institute of Traffic Engineers publishes a manual called the ITE manual, in which it says that it has studied and deciphered roughly the amount of number of traffic trips, automobile trips, caused by different categories of buildings, residential, commercial, retail, industrial, etc. And in the ordinance, that table is adopted, page 28, 29 of your ordinance. And specifically as it applies here, it has categorized Locke's new building as an industrial warehousing facility under category 150. The rest of the way that the municipal code works is that that land use category is then multiplied by the number of square feet of the facility and then multiplied by the rate table contained in chapter 6050-1 of the ordinances, which gives the rate per square foot, depending on whether you are in a rural, a new growth, an infill, or a core area. And this sitting out in southeast Oklahoma City, being an industrial, it's multiplied by, I believe it's roughly 50 cents per square foot, 54 cents per square foot. Therefore, on a 1.5 million square foot facility, we end up with about a $752,000 traffic impact fee. So that's kind of the mechanics of how that works. But if you drill down into the details of this Institute of Traffic Engineers land use category for item number 150, an industrial warehouse, that projection is that this type of warehouse will cause 5,586 additional trips per day on the roadways. And that is what forms the basis for charging this type of fee to Locke Supply. So in response to that, feeling as though that number of trips per day was extraordinarily out of balance with what Mr. Orman knows of his business, the services of Johnson Associates were retained. And what they have done is perform a study of what the actual traffic impact will be based upon the historical data of Mr. Orman, how Locke Supply actually operates as business, how many employees he has coming and going from his warehouse facility, and how many semi-trucks he knows he has in and out on any given day. That opinion letter from Mr. Tim Johnson, who unfortunately can't be here with us today, he's away on a personal issue. But that letter formed the basis of our initial appeal to the Development Services Director. But in it, it sets forth really three very important things. Number one, because of Locke's efficiencies in how it operates, because of its knowledge of years of numbers of trips in and out of its building, it knows at most, with approximately 250 employees in the building, that equates to no more than 700 trips per day. If each one of those employees drives to work, drives to lunch, and drives home in the evening, 250 times 3, roughly 700. Plus they know that 50 semi-trucks is all that they send out on any given day. So as against city staff's determination that there should be over 5,500 trips, we've demonstrated by evidence that there's only going to be 750 per day in and out of this facility. If you look at that as a percentage, 750 trips per day as a percentage of the 5,586 projected by the city, it's roughly 13.4% is what we will actually cause in terms of usage of city streets. Another significant point to be considered here is the proximity of the new Locke warehouse to existing infrastructure that can already handle traffic. So it's at the intersection of Southeast 89th and Bryant, Bryant being a four-way north-south, fully developed traffic way. And It is within a half a mile of Interstate I-240. I-240 being a federally funded interstate highway for which the city of Oklahoma City contributes no dollars towards improvement of that roadway system. Lastly, Mr. Johnson's opinion letter references the fact that as part of the overall OK 577 industrial park development, there are four new streets being privately paid for by those developers and will be dedicated to the city of Oklahoma City. These are on a map that Mr. Johnson had provided as an exhibit to part of his report, but essentially there's creation of a 2-lane, 1-mile-long frontage road along the south side of Interstate I-240. Through the heart of the OK 577 development, there's going to be 2 east-west 4-lane roads. I wish I could help you guys pull up the map I'm talking about. So it's attached to Tim Johnson's, probably that scan of opinion letter, Tim Johnson Exhibit D. And it's going to be one of the last schedules attached to that. Right there. Yeah, roughly that shows us to it. Shows it to us, yes. So looking at the projector here, the locked building is kind of bottom center. To orient yourselves, that's Bryant on the right, north to south, southeast 89th running across the bottom of the screen. And then we have these 2 roads in the frontage road here and the other road that cuts completely through the 577 development. And then those 2 roads are joined by a north-south road that will allow traffic to kind of migrate throughout the facility there. Now, in Mr. Johnson's opinion, the creation of these privately developed roads to be dedicated to the city good will alleviate any traffic impact caused by Locke's facility by other traffic being able to route around 89th or Bryant or even to the west. In other words, it will provide a public cut-through of roadways to allow that to be alleviated, any impact to be alleviated, I should say. The cost of those roads being built by the 577 development is approximately $10 million, and it's going to be dedicated to the city of Oklahoma City eventually for, of course, free, and I'm sure subject to a maintenance bond of some sort as well. Locke Supply's purchase of that 95 acres that they bought from OK 577 in a roundabout way helped fund what will be ultimate dedication of $10 million worth of roads. So there is an argument to be made here that Locke Supply has already contributed a significant amount towards alleviation, towards mitigation of the traffic impact, if any, created by their new warehouse facility. I think it is worth noting, and I don't know if this is knowledge of the Board of Adjustment or not, but in February of 2023, approximately a year ago, the city of Oklahoma City, Mr. Jeff Butler, commissioned a private study by consultants, Teichler Bice. And the purpose of the study, and I'm reading from the executive summary, the city of Oklahoma City retained Teichler Bice to review and compare the city's development impact fee program and methodology. And they looked at how the city went about enacting this ordinance, its impact, how it compares with other cities, peer cities in the region and around the country to see what it may look like. But there's a few takeaways from that Teichler Bice report that I think are very important here. And it goes to this whole notion that, number one, Locke's impact is much less than what city staff has projected. And number two, any impact that they may be contributing towards the need for more infrastructure is more than offset by what's being paid for by OK 577, by existing infrastructure, by the roads already being wide enough. And there's lack of any evidence from the city thus far that there will be any definite impact to these roads by Locke. But let me go through this report by the city's consultants for just a minute. And it on page 7 contains a statement A consideration of credits is integral to the development of a legally defensible impact fee. There's two types of credits that should be addressed in impact fee studies and ordinance. The first is a revenue credit due to possible double payment situations, which could occur when other revenues may contribute to the capital costs of infrastructure covered by the impact fee. That's exactly what we're saying here. There's a potential, serious potential, of Lock Supply being charged double because the cost of any improvement is already being paid for by these other developers in the roads that they're building and dedicating to the city. This type of credit is integrated into the fee calculation, thus reducing the fee amount. And he goes on to say the second type of a credit is site-specific credit or developer reimbursement for dedication of land or construction of system improvements for which an impact fee is intended. At the moment, the city, well, as originally drafted, the city's ordinance did not have any type of credit to any developer. Recently, it's been amended to say in subsection M that if there is a lane widening, I forget the exact language, but I can find it for you. Addition of new travel lanes is the way it's worded. That's the only credit that a developer can get. The city's consultant has indicated to the city in this report that to be legally defensible, they're going to have to do something about giving credit to developers or builders like Lot Supply for these other infrastructure that already exists, that alleviate any concern or problem. Let me go on to another point from that Types of Advice report. I'm reading from page 23, where they say they've identified a number of opportunities for consideration by the city of Oklahoma City. The overwhelming majority of impact fees, and they're speaking of other cities, peer cities, are backed by a detailed written technical study that outlines and documents the methodology, all assumptions utilized, and relevant demand indicators, such as vehicle trip generation assumptions. We recommend Oklahoma City complete this technical study. Oklahoma City does not have a stated methodology for how they got to the point they're charging these impact fees. A year ago, the city's consultant told them so, told the city they need to develop that methodology and get it on paper. So at the moment, the real impact of that is that companies like Lot Supply are being charged for 5,500 and some odd trips when they're actually only creating 750. He goes on to say, in identifying another opportunity, similar to Fort Worth, the city may want to consider allowing street impact fee reductions in projects that demonstrate the development will reduce trip generation below what is normal. So a year ago, the city's consultant said exactly what I'm standing here saying before you today. The city should consider reduction of these fees when it can be demonstrated the actual number of trips is going to be less than what city staff has projected. It's in the recommendations to the planning department. That's what we're asking you to do, precisely what the city's consultant has suggested be done. It goes on to talk about some other credits and discounts that maybe should be considered by the city of Oklahoma City as well, and I'll spare you reading the lengthy, but there's plenty of opportunities for this to have been different, this assessment to be different. And the Development Service Director, Mr. Wickenkamp, didn't do it at the first level appeal, and so that's why we're here at the Board of Adjustment asking that it be done on this appeal. Let me just say in conclusion, Locke is being charged roughly a $725,000 traffic impact fee, not based on any methodology, not based on any evidence, but based on some tables that are erroneously applied and adopted here without specific consideration of their actual contribution to any traffic problem, if any. And let me also say that there is no demonstration anywhere in the record or the record below in front of Mr. Wickenkamp that there is actually any impact to the roads caused by Lock Supply. It's an assumption based on some tables at this point. I think it's worth noting, as a bit of an aside, that just about 3 weeks ago, this same issue was argued before the United States Supreme Court. It was argued in a case called Sheets versus County of El Dorado, coming out of the Lake Tahoe area of California. And in that case, the argument was being made that these development fees, these traffic impact fees, are an impermissible, unconstitutional taking of private citizens' funds under the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution as applied by the 14th Amendment to the states. It's going to be a very interesting decision when it comes out, probably May or June, I'm guessing. But it's definitely got the capacity to say that these types of fees are impermissible. If they are, they're going to be subjected to additional testing and scrutiny to make certain that they're not unreasonably applied without a methodology or a rational basis or any type of nexus to the actual impact being caused by any developer or permittee or somebody asking to put a building up on their site. So in conclusion, I'd like to suggest our request is we reduce this impact fee consistent with Mr. Johnson wrote in his engineering report to approximately 13.4% of the assessed fee, which equates to a monetary value of $97,171.24. I know I've said a mouthful, and I'm happy to entertain any questions that you all may have of me. Certainly allow Mr. Morgan to answer any engineering questions about any technicalities that you all may have.
I've got some questions, but before we go further, I want to try to hone in really quickly and make sure not to get off track. The basis of this appeal is in how the fee was calculated.
Part of it, yes. The fee being calculated is based upon erroneous Institute of Traffic Engineers categories that don't properly categorize La Plaza Warehouse.
And so that's where I want us to, and may need to get an opinion from legal counsel on this, but several of the points you touched on, I feel they were great points, but I think so many of them were outside of our purview, and I'll verify that in a second. But on the basis of the appeal, when you say the categories, if we're talking about the categories that were already established, basically the city's methodology for how they assess these fees, I think that would be outside of the purview simply because that decision has already been made some time ago. However, to appeal the decision on how these fees impact your individual development, yes is on the table. So are you saying that the land use category and or some combination of the rate assessed is inaccurate?
I believe so.
Okay.
So what I think the authority of the board is to consider this appeal is outlined in 5014 subsection M. And I don't want to speak for the city, councilor's office on this, but I think you're allowed to review the rate or the calculation, and I think the rate is wrong.
Well, I tend to agree with you on the fact that that's at the heart of the question, is whether or not that we can include that subsection 50-14 in our consideration.
I'm about to introduce Craig Keith. He is a deputy municipal counselor in our office, and he will answer those questions.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Adjustment, my name is Craig Keith. I'm with the City Attorney's Office from Oklahoma City. The purview of the Board of Adjustment as written in the ordinance is very limited. It goes to whether or not the fees were properly calculated. It does not provide the Board of Adjustment any authority to waive development fees, issue refunds, grant credits, or exemptions. It is not within the authority of the Board of Adjustment to rewrite the ordinance, create new categories for land use. Those are within the authority of the City Council. That would require an amendment to the ordinance. The question is whether or not staff has properly calculated the numbers per the existing ordinance not to customize a new ordinance or a new land use category for a particular applicant.
Questions for Mr. Keith?
In reading the case, that's how I read it, and so back to you, I mean, the argument against that.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, sir.
I said, when I read the case, that's exactly the conclusion that I had, but now back to you, what's the argument against what he just said? I mean, our purview has been documented, what we can and cannot look at.
Well, the argument I would have, as I read, and I've improperly cited as subsection M earlier, I think it's actually K2 of the ordinance. You're here to review the building services director's decision. And if you go back to what or the development services director's decision could have reviewed and been based upon. And I'm looking for it in the ordinance so I can read it to you. All right, subsection K1. Should the building permit applicant dispute the determination of city staff on calculation of square feet of the development or the number of square feet of the development designated in a land use category and/or the assessment area or service benefit area in which the development is situated, and here's the important part, or any other basis for the city's calculation of the fee, then the building permit applicant must take the appeal to this board. So it is any other basis for the city's calculation of the fee, which isn't clearly defined in the ordinance, pretty broad, pretty discretionary. But as I read that, that gives you the authority to review any other basis for the city's calculation. And everything I laid out in my lengthy argument are all the other bases why the city staff's determination is incorrect.
There is further in that same code provision, and I'm sure Mr. Keith may reference this as he continues to present to you. It's in that same section that Mr. Woods read from. The Board of Adjustment may not waive development fees, issue refunds, or grant credits or exemptions.
In addition, if I may add, the sentence before that makes it very clear and very limited what the Board of Adjustment has authority for, to determine the number of square feet of development, which has not been challenged, the designation of the land use category, which has not been challenged. They applied the correct land use category, to apply those funds to the appropriate area or benefit area, which has not been challenged, or correction that is based on calculations herein being within the ordinance, not an authority to amend the ordinance or create new rates or new classifications. That's calculated herein.
If I may just respond to that point alone, we do believe it's an inappropriate land use category. Mr. Johnson's report does lay out category 152 would be more appropriate, which goes to a high cube type warehouse. It estimates 2,600 trips per day, which is roughly 50% of what city staff anticipated. And of course, then there's our evidence. We think it's significantly below that.
Is any portion of the fee calculated based on a case-by-case basis of a particular development, or is it all predetermined by the tables and the land uses that are already established?
The rates are established by the tables. Under the law, we're only required to create reasonable classifications, not customized classifications for each use. And so in order to make the ordinance applicable to a classification reliably, we utilize the classifications from the ITE, and that classification is set as such. So there are only the classifications that are in the ordinance.
So in theory, two identical buildings built anywhere, well, built in the same benefit area would equate to the exact same fee.
That's correct.
Anything else from the board? Nobody signed up to speak on this one except you guys.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, sir.
Nobody signed up to speak on this one except you guys.
Planning director's here, he might have something.
Yeah. Is there anybody else who wants to address this? Mr. Woods, you got anything else? Anybody else you want to
I think
comment?
you've given me more than enough latitude to say my piece, and I'm thankful to you for that.
No problem. Craig or Jeff, anything else to add?
No, I think that the concerns that Mr. Woods has and Mr. Woods' client has would be more appropriately addressed to the council as part of a request for the ordinance to be amended. But that's a different body with a different authority.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, I think we're ready for a motion then.
Given the information that's presented, I don't think that we have the jurisdictional authority to grant an appeal based on these grounds. I completely understand the case as it's presented. For what it's worth, which is obviously nothing, this statute, I think, clearly talks to what is reasonable, particularly as the proportional impact that development would cause to additional traffic. However, it appears there's no basis for this body to appeal that decision. So I'm going to make a motion that we deny the appeal of case number 15541. That's it.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to deny the appeal. Cast your votes when the voting panel comes up. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it, everybody. We don't,
Thank you all for your time today.
thank you. Anything else? Citizens to be heard? Nope. No committees? Anybody want to say anything? Rita?
No.
Counselors?
Nope.
I think we're ready to adjourn. We're adjourned.